Let's go. With Stan and Neil Show. The Stan and Neil Show.
What's up? Welcome back. We are back. It is the Stan and Neil Show 2026 style. Great to have you with us here on Twitch or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Neil, great to see you again. How was the holiday?
You know, my 2026 resolution, Stan, was to look as disheveled as I possibly could, and so far I'm living up to that. But in all seriousness, I forgot. Okay, I forgot to shave. All right, hey, and I got a 5 head, not a 4 head. You know, Stan, over Thanksgiving when we talked about our Thanksgiving plans, and me and Stephanie we were going to go to Hawaii, but then Pickle got ill. Our 16-year-old dog. We got 3 dogs and a cat, for those of you new to the pound here. And so we canceled Thanksgiving. We stayed home, and we nursed Pickle back to health. But, in the meantime, Pickle was knocking on heaven's door. And so, we called in the closer, Stan. We called in the end-of-life vet over Zoom, and she gave us instructions on how this would work. She would come to the house, and I'm crying like I'm somebody stole the prize from my Cracker Jacks. I'm so sad about it. I'm such a softie for these dogs. I love them to death. Well, I think Pickle Stan was eavesdropping on that conversation because she has made a complete 180, and She's sitting at my foot right now. Now she's got kidney disease, and that's not curable. But I'll tell you what, she is strong and is setting an example. And she's like, Mighty Mouse. Here I come to save the day. She's like Mighty Dog right now, and I couldn't be more proud of her. And I'm glad. So we stayed at home and just enjoyed Pickle, Relish, Gigi, and the cat Bando, and had a nice little Christmas Eve dinner with Raj and Nate, former ESPNers.
Yeah,
so that was nice. How about yourself? What'd you do?
Got a chance to go to North Carolina and see my sister and my mom before they take off for France. They're moving to Lyon later this month. So I'm going to have to go to Europe to see my family. Now, my brother's in Lisbon, and now my sister and my mom are moving to France. So I'm going to have to rack up some frequent flyer miles to go over and see them. But it was great seeing them. My mom's 94 years old, still up for an adventure, moving out of the country at 94 years old. So it was an incredible thing to see them and watch all the plans that they put together to make the move. So I got 2 great international destinations to visit now where I don't need a hotel. So
you're going to need Delta One for those trips, I think, brother.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in Delta One, too.
I'm a big believer in Delta, and I'm kind of surprised that Delta isn't a big believer in the Stan and Neil Show and hasn't contacted us about being the primary sponsor of the Stan and Neil Show. Delta, we love you. We'd like some love back.
All right, exactly. I love it. Neil Everett, Vice President of Sales for the Stan and Neil Show, in addition to being the host. Let's remind you, if you're on Twitch, you can become a subscriber, 3 levels, rookie, all-pro, and then Hall of Famer. So if you're joining us here, please subscribe. Helps out the program when you do. All right, let's talk NFL, Neil.
Yeah.
How about this? Chiefs not in the playoffs. Jon Harbaugh and the Ravens not in the playoffs, and now Jon Harbaugh looking for a job, which apparently won't be hard for him to find. Carolina Panthers win the NFC South. So just a surprising season around all around in a lot of different ways, including the Seahawks. I don't know if anybody had them penciled in as the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they got it done. Shout out to the Pacific Northwest, your stomping ground.
There you go. Taking them as you listed them, I'm not surprised about the Chiefs because, there's a trend where a team that played in the Super Bowl the year before doesn't even make the playoffs the next season. And it was the Chiefs' turn for that. So that didn't surprise me as much. Jon Harbaugh had been with the Ravens for 18 seasons. And if he and Lamar Jackson aren't on the same page, and Lamar Jackson, I think, turned 29 today or yesterday, you can't waste a talent like Lamar Jackson. So you got to shake something up. And you're not shipping Lamar Jackson out. So I think, sometimes after 18 years, it doesn't even have to take that long. the message is becomes Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. And that's what the fellas were hearing.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was the offensive coordinator, but Harbaugh was committed to the offensive coordinator, so that kind of blew everything up there in Baltimore. Yeah. I saw Louis Riddick post about this, and he said, it's not just plug and play. You don't just get another coach and then everything's fine. So it'll be interesting to see what this transition is like for Baltimore, who they hire as a head coach, and what that head coach's offensive philosophy is moving forward with Lamar Jackson. Because you're right, they can't waste his talent.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, you think about it, you think, oh, Jim Harbaugh got fired. But it's like, no, he's like, no, that's 30 people got fired. That's Jim Harbaugh. That's his
Jon
staff.
Harbaugh.
Jon Harbaugh. Yeah. Not the first time I've made that mistake. I still am at the Heisman. I was calling Fernando Mendoza Francisco Mendoza. That was nice. It happens. What the hell? Jon Harbaugh goes, the assistant coaches go, the training staff goes, all the office people go. It's like, 30 people are out of a job. And so if you don't bring somebody in who's got backup already, you're starting from scratch. And that's where it comes down to you bring in an established head coach who's out there, Stefanski, or the cat who was at Dallas and won with the Packers, Mike McCarthy.
Yep.
Yeah, somebody like that. So, the Ravens got a lot of work to do, but Derrick Henry's 32 and he's that's a hard 32. So the clock is ticking on the Ravens, and they decided that they needed a new clock manager to make it happen, and they know better than us. Now, if you told me before the season started, Stan, that Carolina was going to win the NFC South, I would have told you to put the bottle down. Okay, honestly. So that's the biggest shock of those three things that you mentioned, and then of course the Seahawks making it to the. I don't think the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks being the one out of the NFC, that's surprising. Them being in a position to play for a Super Bowl doesn't surprise me as much.
Yeah, I saw them early in the season against the Saints, and I was really impressed with the way Seattle went about its business. And Clint Kubiak, the job he's done with that offense, he's getting a lot of interest in terms of teams who have vacancies for head coaches, and it's well-deserved. I think he is a rising star in the coaching ranks in the NFL, and I think any team that gets him is going to be really, really lucky. And as a Saints fan, I hope it's not Atlanta. Let me just say that. All right. So let's start with those Panthers. Let's start with Carolina and the Rams and take a look at that game. They met earlier in the regular season. Panthers won 31-28 on November 30th. Fool's goal, or do you think it's a sign of things to come?
Well, it's the first of 6 games over 3 days, and what a weekend we've got. 2 Saturday, 3 Sunday, 1 Monday. As you mentioned, Carolina in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. In that game that you mentioned, Matthew Stafford was just Matt Stafford in that one, Stan. He threw 2 picks. One was a pick 6. Bryce Young probably had his best game of the season. I think he threw 2 or 3 touchdowns, but he's been held to under 150 yards passing in 6 games this season. He is so hit and miss, and I got to believe that game in the regular season was his hit, and I got to think that this game coming up is his miss, because I think the Rams are going to be, the Rams are a tough out for Carolina, even though Carolina has home field. And are you all right, Stan, with Carolina having home field, or should they reseed so an 8-9 team doesn't get to host?
No, there has to be a reward for winning your division. And Carolina won the division. I'm not saying that because I am a fan of a team in the NFC South, which was, competitive in terms of the teams within the division, but not competitive in the larger NFL. So, no, there has to be a reward for winning your division. I mean,
I agree.
Good teams come and go in terms of which good teams are in which division, and some years it could be really, really competitive. I mean, there were a lot of years back with the old NFC West. When the Saints were in the old NFC West, they had some great teams with Jim Mora coaching them, and they just happened to be in the same division with the 49ers. And so the Saints would put up, 10 or 11 wins, but the 49ers would have 12 or 13. And the Saints would in a lot of ways, be the second best team in the NFC, but it didn't matter because they didn't win the division. They would have to settle for a wild card. So it's just kind of how it goes. It's how the proverbial cookie crumbles. And so win your division and you get to host. If you don't win your division, you don't get to host. Those are the rules, okay? I think you're spot on here. I think Carolina did a good job winning the division, had a protracted battle with Tampa Bay for most of the year. Atlanta, I believe, underachieved, and that's what led to the oustings that we saw there with Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, the general manager. Although I think the job Morris did was worse than the job Fontenot did, because I think Atlanta had a roster that should have allowed them to win the division. I think they were the most talented team in the division. They set a franchise record for sacks. James Pierce and Jalen Walker really helped them rush the passer. They got Bijan Robinson, one of the best all-around backs in the NFL. They have a legitimate number one receiver in Drake London. They got Kyle Pitts. Darnell Mooney is a deep threat. I mean, they had everything it took to win that division, but they underachieved. So Carolina takes it. Now, Carolina, not only 8-9, but their point differential was minus 69. So when they got beat, they got beat. And I think they're going to get beat pretty bad this week. The Rams scored 518 points. That's the most in the NFL, and I'm with you. I think it was an aberration for Matthew Stafford, who has returned back to his MVP form since then. They got Cam Newton coming back. It looks like to pound the drum for Carolina, to keep pounding. But I just don't think their defense is going to be able to hold up against Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams had a pair of touchdown catches in that first meeting. I just don't think Carolina has enough offensively. They can run the ball well. Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle have run the ball well for them this season. That's been the strength of their team on offense. And like I said, Young has come in and out, but I just don't think they have enough. I think the Rams are going to win this. I think it's going to be pretty decisive as well.
100% agree. What do you think about Packers at Soldier Field against the Bears? I mean, this is the first time these two have met since 2010, the NFC in the playoffs. NFC Championship game that was won by Green Bay, where Green Bay then went and won the Super Bowl that year.
Yep, they're both kind of stumbling in. Green Bay's lost 4 in a row. Bears have lost 2 in a row. They split the season series. Each team won at home. Chicago coming in 6-2 at home. Green Bay 4-1 on the road. I think Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson is going to be the difference in this game. I think he's taken the next step now. They went out and got Ben Johnson specifically to mold the offense around him. He's done a good job. What really jumps out at me is he's thrown just 7 interceptions. And I think turnovers are going to be the difference in this game, because the Bears take care of the ball and they take the ball away. They had 23 interceptions in the regular season. That was the most in the NFL. Helped them win the most takeaways in the NFL as well. And so I just don't think that the Green Bay defense is going to be able to put enough pressure on him without Micah Parsons. They have just 2 sacks since they lost Micah Parsons. The last 2 weeks they played without him. The Bears defense hasn't been good down the stretch. So I think Green Bay will be able to put up some points. But I just think Caleb Williams is going to be the difference, and the Bears will win a relatively close game. What do you think?
Yeah, Green Bay didn't finish strong. In fact, they didn't win a game since Micah Parsons got injured.
Yep.
And Jordan Love concussed the last time they played. He missed that half and then missed 2 or 3 other games. He's supposed to be back. Chicago's lost 2 in a row. Green Bay's lost 4. Your point about them limping in. Caleb Williams, are we going to be introduced to playoff Caleb Williams? That's what I think is. That's what our eyes are all going to be on. This is a different stage for him. Chicago. Green Bay has Josh Jacobs. He's got a bum knee. He's the best running back in that game.
Yep.
But DeAndre Swift in Chicago, he's got the best ensemble. And the weather's going to be rainy, snowy, windy. It's going to be who can run the football. And I think Chicago can run the football. I don't think Green Bay can run the football the way Chicago can. And I like the Bears in this one too, except, guess what? The line, Stan, The line has the Packers favored by 1.5. We got Doug Kezirian, the betting guru, coming on later in the show, folks. But so I want to ask him because this line has gone back and forth. But at last check,
I've seen it. I've seen it 1 point either way.
Yeah, but if it's 1 point Packers, then they're begging you to take the Bears. And as distasteful as it may sound, if you're playing the system, the contrarian system that I've introduced America to, you have to take the Packers. So I'll be interested to hear about Doug, who's far more versed on this betting stuff than you or I are.
Hey, but you have a system and you stick to it, and that's what really matters. I think without Micah Parsons, Green Bay's defense is going to have. I think we're going to get introduced to playoff Caleb Williams, and I think the results are going to be surprising. Even in the bad weather, I think he's a unique talent, and they just had to get the right coach because Chicago has been a place where quarterbacks go to die, at least their careers. But I think Ben Johnson, if you look at what happened with Detroit offensively this season and what happened with Chicago offensively this season, it's not hard to figure out. It's that guy, and I think the Bears nailed it bringing him in, and I think they're gonna reap the benefits of it this weekend.
Yeah. There's a
All right,
Chicago
Niners
Bear,
Eagles.
There's a Chicago Bear library not far from my house, and they will be well read come this weekend.
Breaking out the books. Breaking out the books this weekend.
They will be some deep dives into some heavy books.
It always
49ers
amazes
and Eagles.
me. It always amazes me the number of people from other places who live in LA, and sports really helps you find out about it. Because like the Clippers played the Celtics the other night, and it wasn't 50-50, but it was 60-40. Clippers to Celtics fans. And I'm like, where are all these Boston people coming from? But it's Southern California, great place to live. So there's a lot of people from everywhere who get here and say, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm going to stay here. And so then when their team comes to town, they get to refresh their hometown alliances. So there's a lot of Celtics fans in there, especially at the end because the Clippers got blown out. At the end, it was mostly Celtics fans at the end, late in the fourth quarter. But, you see that a lot. I mean, you see it with the Packers here. You see that with the Steelers here. And the Chargers, whoever the Chargers are playing, you see it with their fans as well. But
there's an Eagles bar. There's an Eagles bar. We're on 49ers Eagles. 49ers are always we're a popular team in Hawaii. I remember popular here. And the Eagles, there's a library not far from my house also where the Eagles fans gather. They not only read but they sing after every time the Eagles score.
The Fly Eagles Fly song. Yeah.
Fly Eagles Fly. Yeah. So that the Eagles are tough to figure out. Stan, they're the reigning champs, but their offense is. It's just sometimes it looks like it's glued. The defense is glue, but the offense sometimes look like it's sniffing glue. I mean, they just no consistency. And the 49ers have been so impressive to work through the injuries that they've had. And Brock Purdy, I think, missed basically the first half of the season, and now he's just electric right now. Weeks 11 to 18, his passer rating's nearly 106, and I don't know what that means exactly, but I know the higher the number, the better the better it is for the quarterback. And
more than 100, more than 100 is pretty good.
Okay, so he's 106. It's just Seattle's defense stifled the 49ers, so that's got to worry you if you're a San Francisco fan because that Eagles defense is pretty sharp too. 49ers may not, or excuse me, the 49ers may not have Trent Williams, and that could be big. That could be a big loss at left tackle.
Yeah,
for them. But Purdy's so good that when he gets out of the pocket and rolls right or left. He's got great vision downfield, completes a lot of passes. The DC for Philly's already been talking about that. Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive coordinators, that you've got to really disrupt Purdy because he's got such great vision looking down and completing passes. So I kind of think the 49ers might surprise the Eagles. I don't know why.
The stat that jumps out to me is that Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are 5-0 at home in the playoffs. They find a way. And I think they're going to find a way again, and I think that way is Saquon Barkley. Because the 49ers defense, they miss Fred Warner. He does so many things for them. He's so good at man in the middle, making tackles, getting everybody lined up right. I mean, it's a big loss when he's not in there. Barkley averaged 4.9 yards per carry over the last month. So he's really starting to find his groove now just in time. And the Eagles' corners have played really well. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, the offenses of their opponents have a completion percentage of 56.5%. So they've done a really good job of shutting down opposing passers. The Eagles' offense is going to get Lane Johnson back on their offensive line. He's one of the keys to them being able to run the ball. And so I just don't think that the 49ers, they've done a great job with all the injuries that they've had. I mean, Kittle was hurt. And I mean, McCaffrey has been the only constant throughout the whole season. And McCaffrey's going to have to be Superman, I think, for them to get by Philly. But I think Philly knows that. And so I think the focus is going to be on him both as a runner and a receiver, because I just don't think San Francisco has enough offensively to beat Philly. Now, you know, Philly has that built-in advantage where if they get in 3rd and 1 or they get in goal line situations, that tush push, it just always works. It's kind of a no-brainer for them. And I think that's a real advantage because in the playoffs, every single play matters. So those 3rd and 1s, if you can convert them and know that you can convert them, it influences how you play leading up to those types of plays. You know, you don't have to worry about it if you're a little bit short. If a guy comes up and makes a play in the open field and you got a guy looking like he's going to get a first down and he doesn't get it, you know you can get it. You know, and I think the combination of Philly's ability to run the ball and San Francisco's defense, you know, it's not just Warner. They had some other injuries from last week, some other linebackers that they lost. They're last in pressure rate and 29th in pass rush win rate. So they're not rushing the passer very well. The Eagles rested their starters last week, I think, with this game in mind, knowing, you know, it's going to be a physical game because Kyle Shanahan's going to have them ready to play. So I just think the combination of the Eagles being at home, being rested, healthy, I just don't see a path for the 49ers outside of Christian McCaffrey going bananas.
Well, you mentioned McCaffrey and Superman in the same sentence, which brings us to Buffalo at Jacksonville because Josh Allen is the Superman for Buffalo. But I don't know if Jacksonville is going to be his kryptonite because he's like Batman without Robin. I mean, he's got very little help. I guess, you know, well, that's not fair. That's not fair to James Allen because James Allen can rush the football. But I think if Buffalo is going to be able to – James Cook, I'm sorry.
James Cook.
My brain is sometimes cooked.
No, we know who you meant.
Yeah. Do you see him do the play-by-play on Laura Rutledge running across the field? He's the best. God.
No, I saw somebody mention it on social media, but I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, it's vintage. You know, Buffalo, if they're nobody's talking about Jacksonville, and they're the hottest team out there. They've won 8 straight, 9 of 10. Trevor Lawrence is playing like he should be in the MVP conversation over the last half of the season. I mean, 19 touchdowns, 15 rushing, and 15 throwing, 4 rushing, only 1 pick, nearly 300 yards a game passing over the last 6 games. And you know, but it's Josh Allen. He doesn't have to get through Patrick Mahomes. You just wonder is the window closing on Buffalo? And are they like those teams that had to face Jordan in the NBA and he had to face Mahomes for the Chiefs and just wasn't ever able to get it done? It's a tough ask for Buffalo, but it's hard to pick against Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes has been his nemesis so far in his career, preventing him from getting to Super Bowls. But I got a hot take for you, Neil. He's not the best player on that team this season. James Cook has been the best player on that team this season, led the NFL in rushing, and without him, they'd be in real serious trouble. And Allen's got a couple of other problems too. One problem is that Drake May has emerged in New England. So after dominating that division the last several years, the Patriots have jumped up now, and that's the reason why they have to go on the road. Okay. The other problem is Trevor Lawrence. You could argue that Trevor Lawrence has had a better season than Allen this season, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be at home. Okay, so he's got both of those things happening. Okay, Buffalo is a 1-point favorite in this game, so I think the playoff experience plays a lot into that. Obviously, Allen's talent, and obviously James Cook, what he's done. But I think just like I mentioned with Caleb Williams in the NFC, I think this is going to be Trevor Lawrence's moment to make people stand up and notice. Like he's kind of gotten caught up in the wash in the AFC with all those quarterbacks. I mean, Burrow and Mahomes and Allen and Lamar Jackson. And then people talk about Josh Herbert, I think, more than they talk about Trevor Lawrence. And so I think this is Lawrence's moment to step up and say, hey, I'm ready to play up to number 1 draft pick, franchise quarterback status in the postseason. The other thing that they have is, okay, you say, okay, well, they got James Cook. You're playing in the playoffs on the road. You got to be able to run the ball, give Allen a chance with the passing game. Jacksonville has the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL. And so that plays right into their strength. Trevor Etienne has been really, really good for Jacksonville. He had a 1,000-yard season, and Buffalo's defense is number 28 against the run, giving up 136 yards per game. So it just, if Jacksonville gets to running the ball against that porous Bills defense, Trevor Lawrence might not have to do much. And even if he does, it sets up play action. So it doesn't look good for Buffalo, and it's not all on Josh Allen. Now, again, I'll say what I said about San Francisco. If Allen goes out and he's Superman, then that gives Buffalo its best chance, along with Cook running the ball. But I just think, I don't know if the window has closed on Buffalo with Allen. The window may have closed on this iteration of the Bills with Allen, and they may have to rethink a lot of things. You got Allen, you got James Cook, and then from there, where do you go from there? You know what I mean? What else do you need? I think they got to go out and they got to get a true number 1 receiver. I don't know what the situation was with Keon Coleman. I don't know what's happened there. I know there've been some concerns about him in his professionalism, missing meetings or whatever. I don't know exactly all the behind the scenes stuff, but he hasn't been what they hoped he could be. And so it's been up to Khalil Shakur. I think they miss Stephon Diggs in that offense. So, I think the questions for the Bills,
they really don't have a number 1 receiver.
Right. I mean, Khalil Shakur, he's good, but they were hoping Coleman was going to be that guy, but he hasn't been. So yeah. I think the questions are going to start after this weekend for Buffalo, because I think Jacksonville's going to knock them out.
And I think if they go out in the first round like that, I think they're probably McDermott will probably be looking for a job, I would guess.
Yeah, that's hard. I always ask when people start talking about firing coaches, I always say, who are you going to get who's better? And so then you wonder, will Jon Harbaugh kind of I'm gonna take the weekend and think about it. Yeah, I'm not going to jump on any other job too soon here. I'm going to take the weekend to think about it, see what happens. Because if they do move on McDermott, he could go from Lamar Jackson to Josh Allen.
That's a pretty good landing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to get to these other games a little bit later, but we got to welcome in our special guest for this show, yes, Doug Kezirian. Neil mentioned him earlier. What's up, Doug?
How are you? Been listening to the show, agree with basically everything that's been said. So what a weekend we have on tap, right? With all the football and college and pro. So really exciting week.
Give us some of the betting keys this weekend, the way you see it. Is there a game that you're like scratching your head going, why is the line like it is?
Not really. Initially, when they opened, I thought a couple of these lines were not out of whack. That's a little strong because it's nothing that's crazy. But they've moved and settled into the right sort of spot, I think. But every year it takes on a new identity, right? You guys are talking about what's wide open, right? That's what everyone's saying this year in the NFL, and I could not agree more. You're talking like the Rams being one of the favorites, and they have to go on the road in the first round. They're not the one seed with the bye, but that's just the way things have laid out, and there's giant question marks everywhere. And you guys were just touching on it, but I did think the Houston Pittsburgh game is interesting that it's a full 3. I thought it would stop at 2.5. So I guess that game being a little high. But again, we're talking, half point here and there, although 3 is such a key number we talk about. But anything stand out to you though, Neil?
Well, and I mentioned it to Stan, the Packers and the Bears. I would think the Bears would be a favorite at home. Packers have lost 4 in a row, and I always look at, like, if they're begging you to take a team. In this case, it would be Chicago. You're going to get Chicago at home and a point and a half. Then you've got to give the point and a half and take the Packers. Even if you're like, God, I don't think the Packers are going to win, but that line doesn't make sense to me that the home team's not favored.
Yeah, it's simple math. It's kind of like, think about Selection Sunday, right? And the brackets are announced, and as soon as they're announced and revealed, there's a point spread up literally 15, 30 seconds later. And all it is odds makers have a long list of teams and their power ratings. And they take, this team facing this team, subtract the power rating and go with it because it's a neutral court. There's no home court unless it's like Duke and Charlotte or something like that. But here it's just straight math because the math, there's so much money, sophisticated money with betting computer syndicates and things like that. They shape the market. That's who the bookmakers care about betting. They don't care. Remember that, like, sometimes you'll see those pie charts of 95% of the money is on this team and the line hasn't moved. They don't care if the public wins. Think of it like a roulette wheel, right? You walk in the casino and, like, groups of bachelor parties and whatnot are all betting red or all betting black. They don't start moving the numbers and take numbers off the wheel to make it even. They just, because they know the math is in their favor. They know that the little edges, the little extra, if you bet red, they get just as many black numbers and then 2 green numbers, and they're going to get you with death by 1,000 paper cuts in the long run. And that's the same concept with the math here, because you have to lay the vig and the juice, right? The math guys are the ones that come in and say, wait, that line's not right, not right. So they bet. So as long as those guys aren't betting, that means they think they have a fair number. It's like the roulette wheel. They're like, all right, the odds are in our favor, and we're just going to let it. And so the math guys just stick to their numbers, and that's data from the whole season. So we might think, we as eye test bettors or whatever, may think that there's an edge here or a narrative like revenge and whatnot, or a certain team playing in cold weather that's from the West Coast and whatnot. The math guys do their thing and we do our thing. So I wouldn't be, if you like the Bears, fire on the Bears, right? I think it's just what it is. The Packers at full strength are power rated higher. And I'm not so sure, right? Like, I'm not so sure with Jordan Love coming off, missing a couple weeks and things like that. I'm not so sure. So ultimately, the public wins quite a bit, right? If they win 50%, they're going to lose in the long run because of the transaction cost, the vig, the juice. So the house isn't always right. The public doesn't lose every bet. So if you have your conviction, go with it.
All right, Doug, let's get into your wild card weekend keys. What's number 1 on your list?
All right. So there's 3 things I sort of think about when it comes to betting the playoffs. And one's a prop bet related, and another is just like an overall concept. And that's the money line. It's always best to align your bet with what the team is trying to do, right? And I know as sports bettors, we don't get a lot of return when you lay a money line favorite and things like that. But it is the best because your bet is aligned with what the team's trying to do. They're trying to win the game. They're not trying to cover points. And you guys were talking about it. Stan, I know you were saying that it's going to take a Herculean effort from San Francisco to go into Philly and win this game. And I agree. This line move, it opened 3, and I didn't agree with that. And it got to 3.5 right away within like an hour Sunday night. And then eventually it settled a little higher. But I don't necessarily trust the Eagles' offense to be explosive enough to cover
Right.
a lot of points. I also don't trust their coach. He kind of plays with fire at the end of games. But I just think it's going to be really hard for the San Francisco team to go into Philly and win with that sort of shaky defense. Now, Trent Williams should return. Brock Purdy's obviously been impressive, but Shanahan doesn't really come back, right? He's whatever it is, 1-38 when they've trailed like 7 or more in the second half. So I like the Eagles money line, but it's never fun to lay 220, 225. So sometimes you can just add like an NBA money line on it, like a parlay, if you will. Like even tonight, there's like a 10-point favorite or something. If you just add that to the Eagles money line and it wins, you're at minus 130 all of a sudden. So there's ways to sort of build bets where it's a lot more comfortable and your stomach and your heart rate is a little bit more at ease, not having to lay a lot of points over 3 points with this Eagles team. But I think Philly, as you guys alluded to earlier, rested their guys. I think they're going to be ready to rock at home. It's always a ruckus crowd. They're going to be a little skittish with their offense if they go 3 and out a couple times early. But I do think the Eagles get the W. It's just a lot to ask for San Francisco to go on the road this entire postseason, particularly week 1.
Yeah, I think Saquon Barkley is going to be the difference. I think they're going to be able to run the ball.
Well, your second key.
We've seen weird outcomes of the point spread, but if you're aligned with the team that they're trying to do, that's really a great way to sort of like think about it when you do the money line bets.
All right, your second key is QB rushing yards. What do we got on that?
Right. So it's prop betting, right? So the odds makers have an entire season of stats, and they sort of compute the rushing yards of each quarterback, right? It's like, okay, well, Purdy ran for an average of this in every game. Sometimes it's higher if they're an underdog versus a favorite, and certain teams allow rushing yards, right? That's how these odds are computed, right? But if you think of the narrative, and I was talking about the math guys versus us, the eye test. If you're a quarterback, you're brainwashed by your head coach unless you're Jackson Dart, to always slide, always kind of get out of bounds, throw the ball away, things like that. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's all hands on deck. You're willing to do things that whatever it takes to win. So typically, quarterbacks who are not just pure dual threat guys like Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, all these guys who already run for a lot, right? New England's court, just all that stuff. So you get guys who kind of run a little bit. I think they're going to run a lot more in the playoffs. That's typically what happens. So betting over a certain prop for a quarterback's rushing yards in the playoffs that you think is going to be a tight game. Like I love Trevor Lawrence over 24.5 rushing yards because I think he's just going to be willing to tuck it and run. Now, he's been great the second half of the season, I think, looking downfield when he's flush from the pocket and throwing. So that gets frustrating because you think he's going to run and he's got this big frame, but then he pass, and he's been great. And I agree with you guys. He should be more in the MVP conversation than he is. I just think it's going to come out in the wash. I think he's going to run for a few more yards than he usually does because he's going to fight for extra yards. And with Purdy, don't be discouraged betting a rushing yards over just because a team that he's facing has a great defensive front and gets a lot of sacks. Sometimes that means the pocket collapses earlier than you think, and he's going to be running for his life. And remember, unlike college, sack yardage does not count for rushing yards for a quarterback. So if he's sacked 10 times, who cares? It's all about when he actually crosses the line of scrimmage and gets rushing yards. So that's something to keep in mind. But I like both of those.
Excellent point.
Again, it's sort of a value play. Again, the mindset is different in the playoffs than the regular season. I would always do this with Russell Wilson. He'd always go crush his rushing yards with Seattle and stuff because he's always willing to tuck it and run.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about your third key?
That's the game I think you guys touched on with the Rams. It's the biggest line of the weekend, 10.5. It's a monster. And it kind of is weird because the Panthers won outright the last time these two teams played. And it wasn't that long ago. So it's, what am I missing? Now, Rams recently have not looked completely dynamic, but they do get Devontae Adams, full participant in practice today. So that's something to consider. Few things. Rams just went to Atlanta on Monday night, then flew back to L.A., had the home game against Arizona. Now that got to go back to Carolina, right? That's something to be said about that. Also, I watched that Panthers game start to finish, and I thought what Canales did on offense was brilliant. he grinded. Now, I know
Mm-hmm.
Stafford had 2 picks, including a pick 6, and that's fine. We can't expect that. But he basically said, this is a 4-quarter game. We're going to run all day on this team, and we're going to wear them down. That third quarter, the Rams, the entire quarter ran 3 plays. It was a 3 and out because the Panthers got off the second half, ran a bunch, and they just wore them down. They played the long game, right? That defensive front for LA that's so good at getting to the quarterback just was
Mm-hmm.
exhausted in the second half, and they just pounded the rock. And so if that sort of mindset goes and there's no silly turnovers where the Panthers find themselves down 14 early or something like that, I would look at, hey, plus 10.5 is hard to turn down. But because again, the Rams are just trying to win the game. During the regular season, there's an ease to that, right? There's no pressure. Sometimes teams just like roll over. Maybe not week 18, but like a week 10 game or week 12 game. A game gets away from a team and they just sort of like go whatever. But this is the playoffs. Rams are going to, if they're up 10, if they're up 14, they're punting. They're just playing the clock. They're trying to get in and out with a win. And I think the Panthers plus 10.5 at home. And if that game plan and they try to reciprocate it, I think it's a really smart. It's going to shorten the game, and I think they're going to really wear down a Rams front, which isn't exactly big defensive front, but they can get to the pass rusher. They've done an excellent job with the late rounds of drafting, but I think the Panthers can really run the rock. I'm not the biggest Bryce Young fan, but Canales has been much better designing plays, making it so he can see open receivers. Obviously, McMillan's been great. I think 10.5 is a big number. It's the rematch. It's really interesting. So I think that's kind of the one, Neil, you asked, like, what game's jumping out to me? That's the one because I watched the entire game, and it wasn't just about the Stafford pick 6. And they dominated that game plan and really dictated sort of the game flow that really benefited them.
Excuse me for a second, guys. I got to step away.
The gambling
for win again, right? You're just asking them to not lose by 11 or more.
Doug, the gambling for us is conversational, but for you, it's your business, it's your job. Do you grade yourself like at the end of a regular season and like keep track like weeks 1 through 18? I'm plus this and or minus this. Hopefully, it's plus this, and then the playoffs are like another chapter in your book, or is it one whole season, or is it neither of those things?
That's a great question. I'm actually doing my numbers the last couple of days because I wanted to do it per season and then per calendar year, just the way it works. Because some seasons go through like NBA, right? Starts in one calendar and ends in the other. But I just did all my numbers, and 2025 was plus 27.38 units of all sports. But so what that is what's a unit? It can be $10 or whatever it is, but like these NFL games, like these things I'm talking about, I'm talking like a half unit play, things like that. I had a 3-unit play on a college basketball game yesterday, but it's all about sort of, weighting things. And just because it's a Super Bowl, it doesn't mean you bet the most. But yeah, you try to do this in a way where you have an exact science, if you will, where it value, so like I'm going to be involved in like a women's college basketball game today more than in any game on the slate. So with the playoffs, it's only 5, 7, 8, whatever it is. It's not a full slate, so you should be really, in theory, betting less. But if there's an opportunity that you have, then you really, really like it. Like last year, I loved a prop of all things, and I'm not a huge prop player, but Lamar Jackson and his pass attempts versus rushing. We talked about rushing in the playoffs. He really started to run more. And his mom said something about he's got to run more. It was like a storyline that week. And I was like, honestly, there's betting value with that. And sure enough, he had like 2 less pass attempts in that Bills Ravens game than he was projected. So you just got to have your eyes open, your ears open, and wait for an opportunity. But yeah, it's all about, I do track every play because I also distribute plays and post plays, and I want to be very meticulous about it. It's a pain. Like I'm still doing 2025, going through my spreadsheet and everything. But yeah, I mean, look, you're trying to do this, and NBA is the hardest sport to bet. I mean, it used to be sort of known as NFL is the hardest to beat. NBA sides, the sides. Now props and over unders, that's different. NBA sides is by far the hardest thing to bet. So those are like the lowest scale, and I'm trying to pull back more and more with it, just because it takes such a different. It's just such a different animal, and it's so much more random than any other sport.
Situation where you said, look, everything about the numbers says this, but my gut is just telling me the numbers are wrong. And what do you do in
Yes.
that situation? What do you do in that situation?
It's a great question. It really hit me. This goes way back, like 15 years ago almost. It's when Tom Brady was coming off the 4-game suspension.
Okay.
And they were going to Cleveland. Belichick and it was them against the world. And the math was like, it was like Patriots were like 4.5, 5-point favorites.
Okay.
And I was just saying, like, I know this Belichick team. Brady's the most competitive dude there is. I
Yep.
don't care that the numbers say X, Y, and Z. They're gonna come out like, they're out to just take out their aggression on everyone, and they blew them out. But those are outlier situations. Also, you just have to trust your own stuff. Now, I don't have a computer model. So my computer
Okay.
model is really like my football acumen. Now, I work with the guys who do have models, and I really lean on them. But you got to ultimately trust whatever got you here, so to speak. So um, I just don't think the market is 100% right all the time.
Okay.
And now, granted, the odds makers, what they're doing is they're taking very respected wagers. They're basically a giant Venn diagram, okay? Instead of 3 circles, think about like 50 circles. And they
Okay.
have all these people that they really respect. So when these guys bet all these 50 circles, most of them are on overlapping and stuff like that. Like there's sharp people on either side of the game, right? It's very rare they're all on one side. So when they're going to be on both sides, but sometimes guys are sharper than others. Like I know one sports book here in Vegas that has 7 tiers of bettors, like the top guys and then the next top. So there's pro bettors that are maybe in the 3rd or 4th tier, but not the
Okay.
top tier. So they have different ways of sort of figuring out how it's all, and not all of them bet the same game, right? So there'll be like 3 guys on Clemson today against SMU or something like that. But when it comes to playoff games, they're usually on that. But if they take a wager they really respect and no one's on the other side, they'll move it. And that's why the market moves. Like we talked about the Niners game going from 3 to 3.5 to 4 to 4.5. But ultimately, I have my own, and their sharp guys may not bet at their book. They may bet at a couple other books that have a half point better or 5 cents better. So it's all just sort of like an aggregation. And I have my own with my intimate team and then my loose team, like my friends and stuff that I really respect. But ultimately, it's, what does your gut tell you for me? Other
Yep.
guys are just pure math. And I know guys who make a lot of money of this and go play golf on Sundays during all the games. And they just let the math do all the work. And I'm live betting and I'm hedging positions and doing all this crazy stuff with a bunch of TVs and laptops. But everyone has their own sort of method to the madness. Yeah, you got to pull back. You can't do it all. So, like I said, I've pulled back a little NBA. And I ultimately just go with my gut because I think I know this stuff since I was a kid, right? I've been doing this forever. Now you get hit over the head enough times, like I have enough scar tissue, where I would smile and be like, old Doug would have made this bet and lost a lot of money, and I'm like, you just can't do it. But then sometimes you just learn by doing things over and over again. And so you just got to trust now I may pull back an amount and make it a smaller play or do a little bit. And then in game, wait to see something that if I'm looking for a certain thing or someone's ankle feels good or looks good or whatever, you try to remove the unknowns. Now, the syndicates bet hundreds of thousands of dollars. I do not. So the limits I'm allowed to bet in game are much more my level. So I can still get down a good amount in game once I see certain things I'm looking for, like that Panthers Rams game I was alluding to, I noticed what had happened, and so I was able to bet a little bit in the second half on the Panthers because I had noticed that game plan that Canales had implemented was definitely taking effect.
All right. Well, good luck this weekend. Hope you get some more units to your credit.
Thank
I got one more question.
Okay.
Can you bet on like who's gonna fill a coaching vacancy? Is that a prop bet that's actually out there?
Yeah, so it was always like offshore world, right? Stuff because the old thing was who's not going to be. It had to be something that was decided on the field, right? Like total passing yards or things like that, right? But then some states at these legal books like DraftKings and Fan, you can bet who's going to be the head coach, the next head coach. Now it's easier with players, like when there's quarterback competitions in the middle of the summer, like Gardner Minshew and whoever's with the Raiders or whatever it be, who's going to take the first snap in week 1 for the Raiders in the regular season or something like that, because that's decided on the field. So that you can bet in more books. But some books, I think it's like in New Jersey, the Super Bowl, you can bet on the Gatorade color.
Right.
And I think Indiana and Ohio, but not most of the states. It's all about, does the sportsbook legal team want to petition the gaming commission of that particular state? Because remember, in Illinois, you can't bet University of Illinois games or Northwestern games. In Jersey, you can't bet Rutgers games. So some that just hasn't been, the juice hasn't been worth the squeeze for them to go do all the legal work and stuff like that. But I guess some different commissions have different policies and different sort of, barriers of entry. But yeah, you can do the coaching stuff. Now there's very low limits because obviously this can be inside information and things like that. But they do it for a couple reasons. One, it's fun action for their players, and you want to offer the widest menu possible because you want to, it's customer retention. And the second part is it's good marketing. All it takes is a article by an ESPN.com or something, and then it's worth all the trouble to just get, a mention here and there because it's about brand awareness, right? It's like when DuPont paid Jeff Gordon to have DuPont on the side of his car, right? It's just recognition, name brand. It's all marketing. So if you can get mentioned in an article or Twitter or this show, hey, this sports book has Jon Harbaugh at -$3 or whatever it is, and you credit them, then it goes a long way. But not every book, and definitely not in Vegas. You can't do that. The Nevada Gaming Commission is pretty strict by the book in that way.
All right.
You should think about doing this for a living.
Right.
And talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I've been doing it since I grew up. We've talked about. I grew up with 4 older brothers. My famous line is, "I never watched cartoons. I only watched sports." And I was looking at the point spreads in the back of the sports page when I was doing my fantasy team in like 8th grade or 7th grade. So I've been very into this for a long, long time. I love it. It's just like the math of it too is fun, like the economics background of mine. So I truly love the game within the game of all of it, and it's only taken off with all the the mainstream of it all, and also the prop bets too. That's a lot of fun. And it's another conversation about sports. So how can you not love it?
Right.
Shout out to King Arthur too, Doug.
Thank you. He's around here somewhere, the little pooch.
All right, Doug. Hey, man, always great having you on the show.
You too, guys. Great being with you. Always love spending time. You guys are the best.
All right. Thanks, Doug. All right, let's get back to these games now.
And that dude knows his games.
He does. He does. I also
just want to give him $100 and go bet this for
me. But come back with more than 100. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the Countdown Live show on FanDuel Sports Network Monday through Friday, and Doug's a frequent guest on that show as well, man, and he breaks it down. Yeah. All right, so now we're mere amateurs here, but we'll do our best here. All right, so now Texans and Steelers.
Texans and Steelers. Houston's got the AFC's best defense, but their offense.
Wait. Did we do Chargers Patriots? We didn't do Chargers Patriots yet.
No, we should we do that one first?
Yeah, let's do Chargers Patriots first.
Well, I'll make this quick. Justin Herbert has one hand and no offensive line. I think the Chargers are in trouble.
Yeah, I think Drake May, man, I'm sure you remember. Now, I'm giving myself credit for this one. I also had the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, so, full disclosure. But I saw Drake May play with the Patriots against the Saints, and, man, he was fantastic. I could see the difference from year 1 to year 2, very early in the season, the way he stands in the pocket and focuses downfield. And I think getting him Stephon Diggs was a real savvy move by the Patriots to get him a guy who can catch the ball and do things with it afterwards. And my theory of head coach and quarterback, I think Vrabel was a great pick. He's comfortable there in New England. They've reestablished the Patriot way. I think he was a little ticked with the way things went in Tennessee because, I don't think that was his fault. I mean, the buck always stops with the head coach, but he did a lot with a little. In Tennessee, I thought. And so getting another chance now with the Patriots, I think he's really, really motivated based on that. And again, in a comfortable environment where Robert Kraft, knows what he needs to provide his head coach to get the job done. And so Vrabel hit with a quarterback.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Stan there, Jeff? All right, Stan, I don't know if you can hear me, Stan, but we can't hear you. Stanley's broken down right now. I'll pick up Stan's thoughts on Drake May. 31 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. The passer rating of 113.5, best in the NFL, as Stan told me earlier. The higher the number, the better, and anything over 100 is good. And the thing about Drake May, the dude is in his second season.
Yeah.
That's it. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's made the leap. You know, they say the really good quarterbacks, year 1 to year 2, that's where you see the leap. And I've definitely seen it with him. And, look, the Patriots fans they have like on social media, if you don't say Drake May's the MVP, if you say Matthew Stafford's the MVP, man, they'll come after you. And so, look, he's got a strong argument for it. I still think Stafford's the MVP, but I think Drake May has put up a great season, and I think he's going to definitely factor into MVP awards the next few years. Because here's the thing: when you get a guy playing at that level on a rookie contract, and you can spend money in other places, and you don't have to spend $40 or $50 million on a quarterback, it really frees you up to do some things. I mean, the Chiefs benefited with Patrick Mahomes. They identified it early with Mahomes. Okay, let's build around it. Let's go all in while we got him on a manageable deal. So they got Drake May on a rookie contract for the next, probably 3 years. They probably got 4 in the team option for a 5th. So, they may renegotiate after 4, but they got, 2 good years now after this year to still continue building. And so Patriots are sitting pretty, man. They're in a good situation, and I just don't see the Chargers, as you mentioned, the problems with Herbert. Omarion Hampton may play, though. That could help the Chargers a lot because, I mean, he's really been productive for them at running back this season, and I like their defense a lot with Khalil Mack. And number 3, I can see him, but I can't think of his name right now. I'm having my Neil moment right now. But no,
because they come faster and harder.
Derwin James. Yeah. So I like. I still like New England to get the job done, especially at home.
Yeah, the Chargers probably have the best defense nobody talks about because nobody talks about the Chargers. But
right.
You know who was talking about the Chargers recently, and he said this, quote, "I think they're going to be in a lot of trouble." Bill Belichick just said that when he's interviewed in Boston. All right, we started on Texans and Steelers. Houston's got the AFC's best defense. Their offense is inconsistent. They've never won a road playoff game ever, 0-6. Pittsburgh's going to be electric. I mean, the stadium, that's a tough place to play. They got Aaron Rodgers. He's going to sit in a dark room all week and meditate and do whatever he does. But you got to think that this is the time the Texans are going to win a road playoff game.
I think so too. I don't see Pittsburgh offensively being able to do enough to beat the Texans, and I think the Texans will do enough offensively to beat Pittsburgh. That Texans defense, man, it is something else, man. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, they make it very, very difficult for quarterbacks. And, they're very aggressive with their scheme. And on the backside, they got some playmakers. So I just don't see Pittsburgh's offense being able to do enough. Now, they get DK Metcalf back. That'll help. But I don't see where they're going to be able to attack that defense and be successful. So I'm with you there. I think the Texans get the job done on the road.
Yeah, they need Swan and Stallworth, and they're not available. T-Money is already talking about it's Denver's year and it's Oregon's year, and he says Bo Nix runs too much. Anders J saying we need winners from Doug, and Bald Baseball Dad said we need you back on the network, fellas. So that's a good shout out from all three of those folks. We appreciate you chatting with us on this. All right, listen, we talked about Jon Harbaugh. Let's just do this head coaching thing quick because
okay,
we don't know anything.
Right.
What do you think the best job is of the ones that are available? So we're not saying anybody who might lose in a playoff game. We mentioned the Buffalo coach earlier might be in trouble if they go out early. But of all the jobs available, which one do you think is the best, and who is available right now do you think would be the best fit?
I think Baltimore is the best job.
Really?
Because yeah. I mean, I picked them to win the Super Bowl, and they still have all those same players. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think moving on from Harbaugh is a mistake. I'll say that.
Okay.
And they're handing a really good situation to somebody else. So, Stefanski's a really good coach. I mean, he took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. You know, and I think he could step in there.
Twice,
I mean,
think.
look, yeah, and I think
Twice
he could
in the
step
6
in there.
seasons,
Yeah, I think he could step in there, and I think he could really work with Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't know what his personality is like. I don't know if the Shedeur Sanders situation plays into this at all. Probably shouldn't. Probably won't. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything there that would affect that. But I just think with their defense and the personnel that they have, and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, Stefanski could go in there and win. I mean, I really believe that. And I also think the Atlanta job is a really good job.
That's the one I think.
Yeah.
I think the Falcons, because they got a guy who's 82 and is gonna spend the money to try and get a winner before he's told that your time's up.
Well, the quarterback situation, I think that's what caused the regime change there. Was the quarterback situation, because you spent $100 million to go get Kirk Cousins, okay?
Yeah.
And then you draft a guy in the top 10, okay? Yeah. And no knock against either guy, because obviously they like both of them, but you make one move or the other. You don't make both moves, because if you believe Cousins is your guy and you're giving up that much money to sign him, okay, well then use that pick on something else, an offensive lineman or another skill player to help him out. And if you don't think Cousins is the guy, okay, then don't give him the money, draft Penix and spend the money elsewhere. But you can't do both. And it was their undoing, because, when Penix got hurt, now you go back to Cousins, and, it's just, it just wasn't a good situation. But Bijan Robinson is a problem. I mean, he's a really good player.
Who's going to win these college football games we got on Thursday and Friday? I mean, obviously, you know who I'm rooting for on Friday, having gone to Oregon, full transparency.
Yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel about that matchup against Indiana?
Well, I'll tell you what. I watched the Rose Bowl, and I watched whatever bowl they called that, the Orange Bowl that the Ducks were in, and the Ducks defense played the best game I've seen all season. Texas Tech had some monsters. I mean, Indiana just looks really, really good.
Yeah.
And now with this NIL, and they got Mark Cuban behind them, they're gonna continue to be good. That's gonna be an attractive destination for kids. But don't sleep on Dan Lanning. I think that he's I think he learned some lessons last year from Ohio State, having beat him during the regular season, and then gotten beat at the Rose Bowl by him in the second game, their second matchup. So the shoe's on the other foot for Oregon now, having lost at Autzen to the Hoosiers, and now going to play them in the Peach Bowl. So I think it's going to be a really good game, and I'm proud of Oregon regardless of what happens. But obviously, I'd like to see them get a shot at a national championship. It would be their third shot at it, and hopefully the third time would be a charm. Especially now if they play Miami, then you got Cristobal, who coached Oregon to a Rose Bowl, said we're just getting started, and then he left for Miami, and you couldn't blame him if you knew his history, because that's where he's from, and I think that's the only job he would have left Oregon for. I know he loved being the Ducks head football coach, but he could not turn down being the Canes head football coach. And sometimes you question a coach moving, but that's one where I don't think you could question him moving on that to take that job.
Yeah, Indiana's playing with a lot of confidence. I mean, I think they really believe, and so Oregon's going to have to they're going to have to match that first. But Oregon's been there. We're in deep water now, and Oregon's been there. But everybody said that about the Rose Bowl when Indiana showed up to the Rose Bowl, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to get real comfortable real quick," and they did. So, but if anybody can get Oregon in the right state of mind to go out there and do it, it's Lanning. I really like the way he approaches things. So this is a great coaching matchup of guys who get after it. Signetti and Lanning. I mean, they both, they're not shrinking violets. I mean, those guys are they get after it, and their teams reflect their mentality. So I can't wait to watch the game because of that. And the other game, I really like Miami's defense, but I just don't think they can score enough to beat Mississippi. I think Mississippi's still running Lane Kiffin's offense, and it works.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think Kejuan Lacey has committed now to remaining there. Trinidad Chambliss has committed to remaining there. And I think that's a big weight off the shoulders of the program. All the uncertainty, I think, was kind of bearing them down. Like, okay, are we really going to have a quarterback and a running back who come here and either get us close to a national championship or win a national championship, and then they're going to bail on us? Come on, man, you can't do it. So those guys both said this week they're staying. I think that's a big relief for them, and I think they got too much offense. I think their offense is going to win the matchup with Miami's defense more than Miami's offense is going to win the matchup with their defense. I don't. Miami gave Carson Beck a whole lot of money, and he's got to go out and earn it this week against that Mississippi offense because their offense is really, really good.
What is the over/under on Michael Irvin cutaways?
When he takes his belt off, they're going. They may even go sound full. I mean, his little belt to ass celebrations. I mean, it's been wild to watch. And I tell you what's even more amazing is, did you see when he lifted his shirt up?
No.
That dude is 59 years old and he's got abs. Like, he lifted his shirt up, he pulled his shirt out to take his belt off. And I'm like, man, that dude's in phenomenal shape to be his age. He looks like he still go out there and play. And I think he's 59. I think somebody said he's 59. I mean, he's like right around, our age. But I mean, like, I don't have abs like that, and I pride myself on working out a little bit, probably drink too much soda, but I'm going to ring him up. Like, Mike, what's your workout plan look like? Because I want abs like that.
And maybe it's one of those ab T-shirts that shows it looks like you've got abs. That's what I'm wearing.
Yeah. But look. If you're going to take your belt off, you're going to lift your shirt up, so you come prepared, and you're like, hey, not only is everybody going to talk about my belt to ass celebration here, but they're also going to talk about my abs. So let me get ready. But look, it looked legit. But he's more excited than the guys on the field.
He's crazy, man. It's fun. That's what's fun about sports and college sports. Even though it's lost its luster with the NIL, it's a different animal than the pro game. Even though it feels like it's minor league professional football now, but still, just the crowds and the pageantry and the tailgating and all that. It's just college football still got a special spot, even if it's evolving or devolving, depending on your opinion.
See, but here's the thing. So, like, all the off the field stuff. Look, I understand. NIL. It's like, guys are. I saw somebody describe it as, I think it was Bomani Jones. He says free agency and anybody can participate. So it's not like, in the NFL, you can't be a free agent until your contract says you can be a free agent. College football, you can be a free agent anytime you want to, and you can go to the highest bidder. So, like, all that sort of stuff is, it's the Wild West now. But the people who run college football have nobody to blame but themselves, because you had to know at some point you weren't going to be able to keep exploiting the players. and they weren't ever going to get paid. Eventually, they were going to get paid. A court was going to say that this is wrong and you got to pay them, but you just kept kicking the can down the road, and now you got this situation where, you know, who's in charge of this? Who's running this? Who's setting the regulations? Who's setting up the framework of what you can and can't do? It's like, it's whatever, okay? And so eventually it's going to sort itself out. But once you get to the season and once you get to Saturday, people are too invested in it to say, oh, I can't watch this anymore. Yes, you can. And yes, you will. And yes, you have, you know, because people are really, really invested in it, you know? And so all that stuff, when you get to Saturday, all that stuff goes out the window. So people can complain and moan and everything. They're still going to watch. They're still going to be there. It's still going to be, the ratings are still going to be through the roof this weekend because it's a compelling product. And you got good players, you know, and good teams. And so it's going to be, you know, you got some great storylines, you know, the U, is it back? You got the Lane Kiffin stuff at Mississippi. You got Oregon, which has been there over and over and over again, trying to take that next step to win it all. And then you got Indiana, the upstart that looks like the team to beat. So you got great stories that people can tell to get people riled up about it, to get them involved in it. And so all the other stuff, the NIL stuff, I mean, look, I'm happy for the kids. I'm not thrilled about this situation, you know, because it is out of control, but I'm happy that these young men are finally reaping some of the financial benefits of the product that they are most responsible for creating, that is a multi-billion-dollar product. And it's long overtime. You know, they've been due some financial compensation for what they've contributed to the game for decades. And they'll eventually sort out what the parameters are. But in the meantime, keep getting the money because they've earned it. You know? So anyway. Yeah, so good luck to your Ducks, man. I think that's gonna be a fascinating game to watch.
I'm looking forward to it. That's Friday, 4:30 Pacific, Miami, Mississippi. Thursday, 4:30 Pacific. Two good games. You know what it is? It's two interesting games to watch, even if you didn't go to, you know, like if you just like watching sports, you don't have to. And that's the thing I think about college too. Like every state has a team, and most everybody went to college and either rooted for their team or rooted for a college team that was, you know, was from their state. Like you went to Howard, but you rooted for LSU. You know,
yeah. John Brady, the old LSU basketball coach, said not everybody in Louisiana went to LSU, but everybody in Louisiana roots for LSU.
Yeah, and that's
whether you went there or not.
But you know, like a state like Oregon, there is no professional football team. There is no pro baseball team. You got the Blazers, and that's that's a fabric of the community because that's the team, and so I think that's part of the allure of college football.
And you got Uncle Phil.
Well,
you know,
I mean, I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to.
Mark Cuban's coming along, saying, "Hey, Uncle Phil, hold my beer. You know, I got money too."
Yeah.
So you know,
Uncle Phil isn't holding Mark Cuban's beer. No chance.
So if we're going dollar for dollar, you're taking Uncle Phil over Mark Cuban?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, all right. I look, I don't know the financials of the two guys. I think you're more educated on this than I am.
Uncle Phil's been at it way longer than Cuban. Yeah.
Hey, look, but you know, look, moving forward, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to take. You're going to need a T. Boone Pickens, although it never really worked out that way for Oklahoma State because he came along too early before you could do it above board. He built the stadium and everything, but you're going to need big money alums who are invested in the program. And I saw somebody said, "Oh man, I like giving people credit when I read something that registers with me." But I saw somebody who said, people who used to build libraries and engineering buildings and other stuff on campus, now they're building football programs. And you got to go get those people and say, "Hey, look, you know, I know you want to put up this state-of-the-art liberal arts building here because you were a liberal arts grad, but we could use some of that cash over in the football program. Why don't you write a check over there too? And we'll put you on the 50-yard line or in the suite of your choice. So that's what it's going to take moving forward. It's going to take big money. And, that's why, again, I'll go back to my, Power Five's not going to be able to keep up. They're not going to be able to keep up in this arms race. And so they should look out for themselves and create their own thing,
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Skip Wemby.
Listen, NBA, Victor Wembanyama, we have written down here, is he the best player in the NBA? He's certainly the most unique. And I guess if you're going to start a franchise, you're going to pick him first because he is so unique. But I'm more curious.
If you're starting a franchise, would you take him over Jokic?
I think I would because of just his age. And Jokic now suffered his first knee injury, and although I think just he's
age wise. Okay, I'll give you that. Age wise.
I mean, if I'm playing the long game, I'm going to take Wembanyama. If I'm playing the short game, I'm probably going to take Jokic. So
I don't think Wembanyama he's not fully formed yet. I don't think.
Yeah.
As scary as that sounds, I don't think he's fully there. When he's fully there yet, game over.
Yeah.
Game over. When he's fully there, when he makes his full adjustment to the pro game, gets a little bit more man muscle, with the skill that he has, there may not be an answer for him.
He looks like he's playing Nerf, like when I played Nerf against my sister and used to stuff on her face. Take that, Negan. But he looks like he's doing that to everybody in the NBA right now.